Eva Peron. Who was she? Why was she important? We are going to uncover all of this throughout this documentary and discuss her early life, career, political contributions, and her legacy. This is the story of her life. Her maiden name is Eva Duarte. Eva Duarte was born May 7, 1919 in the town of Los Toldos in Argentina. She was born to Juan and Juana Duarte, and her parents were unmarried. Eva's financial situation was already precarious to begin with, and it only worsened when her father passed away. Eva began primary school when she was 8. She attended 1st and 2nd grade in Los Toldos. A few years later, they moved to Junín, Argentina. It was here in Junín where she began to blossom as someone who was able to recite and speak very well. Throughout her time in Junín, she had to make a decision as to whether she wanted to be a small-town girl like all of her sisters and her mom around her, or if she wanted something more, something greater, and something that she was able to love and pursue her talents in. At 15 years old, Eva packed her things, left her family, and moved to Buenos Aires to pursue her acting ambitions. She arrived in Buenos Aires when the conditions were poor and many people were suffering from famine. Despite these poor conditions, she was still able to get her first job working at the Argentine Comedy Club. In March of 1935, Eva was able to secure her first small role on television in La Pequeña Señora de Pérez. This was her first acting job in the big screen. Soon after, in August, she was able to secure a second part in Segundos Afuera. This was the launch of her acting career. Her acting career blew up after these small roles, and she ended up being one of the highest paid Argentinian actresses. Additionally, she became one of the co-founders of the Argentine Radio Syndicate. Now, in order to understand Eva's true impact on her country and the Argentinian citizens later on in her life, it is important to understand the political and economic status of Argentina during this time. In 1943, it was very evident that there was a large separation between the real country and the government was run mostly by the oligarchy. Tensions were high as elections were coming near, but it was assumed that the oligarchy was just going to forge the election as they have had done in the past. On June 4, 1942, a military coup d'etat overthrew Ramon Castillo, the current president at the time. General Pedro Ramirez took over as the new president of Argentina, and one of his first acts was to make Colonel Juan Peron the Secretary of the Department of Labor. Colonel Peron was not very well known to the public at this time, but he began to transform the Department of Labor in order to lay down the groundwork for all the work that needed to be done in the coming years for Argentina. On January 15, 1944, an earthquake destroyed 90% of the Andean city of San Juan. 7,000 people died and 12,000 were left injured. As the Secretary of the Department of Labor and Social Welfare, Juan Perón organized a national relief effort and invited some of the most famous stars to help collect donations, and Eva Duarte was one of them. Soon after, in January, a ball was held at Luna Park where all of the donations and contributions were given to the victims of the earthquake. It was here that a relationship between Juan Perón and Eva Duarte began, but their relationship wasn't confirmed until 7 months later in July at the Colonel Opera House, celebrating Independence Day. Due to his political ideologies, Colonel Juan Perón was dangerous according to his opposition. But who was more dangerous was the woman by his side, because she made it known that she was not a woman that was going to stand behind her man, but rather a woman that was going to stand side by side. On October 13, 1945, Perón was forced to resign from all of his positions and detained and arrested and thrown into prison on the Martin Garcia Island, which was just off the coast of Buenos Aires. He was thrown into prison for his radical ideologies. Without Perón at the helm, the working class soon realized that all of the conquests and progress that they had made would soon be reversed. The following day, on October 14th, many of the workers abandoned their workplace and protested and went to the Plaza de Mayo to demand for their leader back. On that very night, Perón appeared on the balcony of Casa Rosada and announced that he would be running for the presidency. Soon after, Eva and Juan were married on October 22nd civilly. The Labor Party chose Perón as its presidential candidate and Quijano as vice president. For the first time in history, the presidential candidate's wife accompanied him on the campaign trail, which was a novelty for everyone in the country. On February 8th, Eva dared to do what no woman had ever done before. There was a political campaign rally made up of the working class of women. However, the presidential candidate Peron could not make it, so Eva went and stood in his place. She began and tried to deliver his speech, but the women would shout, "No, we want Peron," every time that she would try to talk. But that didn't stop her from trying to deliver her speech. Juan Peron won the presidency, and with this came the hard question for Eva as to what type of person and leader would she be for the country in the years ahead. A direct quote from Eva is, "Peron had a double personality, and I need to have one also. I am Eva Peron, the wife of the president, whose work is simple and agreeable. And I am also Evita, the wife of the leader of a people who have deposited him all of their faith, hope, and love." Eva began working at the Central Post and Telecommunications Office, where she met with many workers and working class people and would help solve working disputes as well as unfair wages. This work helped strengthen her reputation as well as provided a foundation for her social work. It also began many of her conquests in helping those with working class emergencies. The following July, she announced to the women of Argentina that she was going to start to implement measures to help their conditions. This increased her visits in factories as well as her visits to poor neighborhoods so she could be in direct contact with people that needed her help. Evita saw herself as the bridge which brought Peron nearer to his people. Eva set in motion a plan for children's tourism. She also negotiated and gave out subsidies to assist the construction of polyclinics, which were meant to help workers in the textile and glass industries. She also distributed subsidies that were given by the state to help over 500 families in need. She gave them clothes, food, and household needs for families that needed it. Eva did more than just help the poor, because on August 21st, the Senate approved a project presented by her to help women gain the right to vote. About a year later, in a session of Congress, President Peron specifically underlined his support for this initiative to help women get the right to vote, and the government was urged to show support for these acts. Evita's concept of feminism was that she saw women as protagonists, while continuing to be feminine, and thought that the feminist movement should, for love, be united to cause and doctrine of a man worthy of trust. She understood that among many differences between a man and a woman, one difference involved the concept of action. A man of action is one who triumphs over the rest, and a woman of action is one who triumphs for the rest. The Maria Eva Duarte de Peron Foundation came into being on June 19, 1948. It got its nonprofit status on the following July 8th. This was one of Eva's most prized political accomplishments. She wanted to create this foundation because it was important that the nation had a safety net. Any nation in progress and developing new initiatives should be prepared to develop an efficient response should any problems arise. Eva's love for children was showcased throughout this foundation. She believed that children were so important to any country because without investing in children, you are not investing in the country's future. As Eva grew popular, so did the amount of criticisms that she received. Critics would say that her behavior was unbecoming of a first lady, that she had a negative influence on Peron, and that she had untamable ambitions for power. Under the surface, but not too far under, was the criticism not of what was being done or how it was being done, but that it was being done by a woman. On January 5th, 1950, Eva fainted in public. She was rushed into surgery. The public was made aware that it was an appendectomy, but her true diagnosis was advanced cervical cancer. Her fainting spells would continue through 1951, and her condition quickly deteriorated. On July 26, 1952, the National Argentine Radio fulfilled its duty solemnly as they informed the public that the spiritual leader of the nation, Eva Peron, had died. The government suspended all official activities for a few days and ordered that the flags be flown at half-staff for 10 days. The public was in disarray, and thousands flocked to the streets and to the Casa Rosada to mourn someone who had made such a positive impact on their lives. So you may be asking, why does she matter? Why is she one of the most prominent Latin American political figures in history? This is because her work had become a part of thousands of men, women, and children who mourned her. In only 33 years, Evita had found the reason for her life. She was able to contribute to something bigger than herself, and she was a trailblazer for all Argentinian women and women around the world, to show them that they could be anyone that they wanted to be. She herself once said that the easiest task is that of changing the names of the works she had built.